Hi, before we go any further, I just wanted to let you know that we discuss some sensitive topics in this episode. So we will be talking about suicide, baby loss, infertility, and there are also some strong displays of emotion. So if you feel that for you today, that might make you feel unsafe in any way, please don't listen any further. And we will welcome you back as a listener for another episode. Take care, everybody. We are thrilled to welcome Rory Green from Enlighten the Shadows onto today's podcast.
Rory, welcome to the Bridge the Gap podcast. I'm actually quite excited to have you on board because I wasn't aware of this, but you actually attended some training of mine like way back when.
Yeah. Thank you, ladies, for having us on. I'm delighted to be on and chat deep, chat real, and big you guys up. We massively love the work that you do. It's imperative to actually prevent what we're picking up the pieces with naturally. But yeah, I did. I came to one of your trainings, I believe, around 2018. So crikey, that's 5 years ago now. You give everything, and it's so worth it, isn't it? When your heart's right, you've been through some really crap times, and you've got some experience about you to speak into people's lives and have that credibility. You know your life's never the same again, and you know you're all chips in, and that's why we do what we do. It sometimes has its challenges, doesn't it, ladies? But it's always worth it, as I'm sure.
Yeah, and it's that lived experience, isn't it? It's knowing that it's, for me, I talk about it a lot, but it's using that pain for purpose. It's using that you can't ever go backwards. Like what's happened. So Nick, for you, it's very similar, and especially like professionally as well, what you've had to observe. So similar to Rory, and we'll talk about Enlighten the Shadows a lot, and we'll get cracking with that soon. But what you said at the beginning there, Rory, about, you know, we're trying to do the preventative work, of which you are trying to support when people are at their lowest of low and they're losing hope. And I think for you, Nick, that was something that you felt frustrated by in the system.
Oh yeah, hugely. And I know we've talked about systems, a few of these kind of podcasts now, and Rory, you'll have undoubtedly heard us talking about this on various media, I'm sure. But I worked in the NHS for many years, 14 years in total, and I wrote a blog about this recently. But that whole experience of working within a system that is very reactive, you're working with very clinically unwell young people, and you're working at a high risk rate. So I was working with young people who were attempting to take their life, who were, you know, I worked in inpatient units and community over the years. And it's awful to say it, but you get used to that level of risk in your life, and you kind of think, oh, this is normal. Everybody's experienced this, like every mental health nurse. There's something there about how can we still go through these difficult experiences and cling on to what matters. But also, why are these children and young people that I'm seeing not having any intervention or anything that's gone before that? Why are they only just learning about what an emotion is when they're coming into an inpatient unit?
So it's a really good point. And I think what we're kind of touching on here is the key component of self-awareness. I think girls typically, societally, are nurtured better, but I think it's getting a lot more improved in the recent years, particularly towards boys, and the great work you ladies are doing, and other great members of staff across the country in particularly primary schools. But I think self-awareness is the biggest component in all of, I guess, what we're touching on in life. We can just roll through the motions, and we are what we surround ourselves in, and we only at times, by the time we're a teenager, or you've got the first 7 years of your life, 90% of your brain is developed. No one really teaches you things. You're regimented, especially in those first 7 years, are regimented, and your subconscious is completely ingrained with all of these societal behaviors and expectations. And actually, you get to like your teenage life, and it can be like your brain could be in kaput, your life can be in a mess, and who's been there to nurture and guide and steward and listen and care and take you through this self-awareness, which none of us are exempt from suffering. None of us are exempt from being exposed to the darkness of this world, which can affect all different people in different types of ways. And I think once we truly become self-aware, which this podcast isn't about us three looking and sounding, high and mighty, but what I'm grateful for, and I'm guessing you two ladies are grateful for, and hopefully in time or even right now, people watching you've had some sort of a checkpoint moment in your life where you go, hold on a minute, why is the way I feel the way I feel? How has this happened? It's not my fault necessarily. I need to spend some time putting work into this. This is going to hurt. And in time, it will get better. And then when you're in a position where you're, aware of your triggers, aware of your traumas, aware of things that have affected you in a negative way, I truly believe that these things can unlock your future to have that license, like I said earlier, to speak to people's lives. It's so important. I think nothing in this world is wasted, particularly your suffering. It's something not to be avoided. And I think particularly with men like myself and older men than myself, we've been taught to just crack on with it, suck it up, get on with it, and you completely ignore the beauty that there is in these dark times, and it certainly break you, but it definitely makes you. And I just think stoicism can be good. I think resilience is key, but there's I feel like there's a sweet spot with this where we don't let these things become our be all end all, like our identity, so they control us, but actually we're in the driving seat and go, yeah, I'm aware of you, and oh yeah, I can see this coming on, and then you're in a position of strength because you're acknowledging it, you're self-aware of it. And I just think it's so important for men and women, for boys and girls, and hopefully by us keep doing what we're doing, we can encourage and get other people on that path, because it is the path to finding, I guess, peace as well. You talked, Jen, about your childhood. Well, ironically, mine was the complete opposite side of the spectrum, where I absolutely smashed out my teenage years and did lots of crazy things and got exposed to madness and carnage. And yeah, there would be, I wouldn't say regret, but there's certainly things that I look back and go, blimmin' heck, I was young and naive, and wow, how did I do those things? So I think part of that self-awareness, lastly, as well, is acceptance, is accepting that is your tapestry. It doesn't define you, but it is part of who you are, and it makes you the person you are today. And there's so much to be taken out of it for the good, I think. So, this got quite deep fast, didn't it?
That's amazing. I think there's so much in there that I wanted to jump on. One thing you talked about, that resilience, and I think that's such a buzzword, isn't it, that's used, but it's what you're talking about with that self-awareness, and what Nikki was talking about. Certainly everything that we advocate for at Bridge the Gap is this authentic resilience. It's it's not being stoic, it's being acknowledging that those emotions are there, and actually I'm not frightened of them because I know I can move through them, and they're talking to me, and I can pay attention to that. And I have this resource box, this toolbox of strategies, of places to go, people to talk to that can help me, like you talked about, guiding us through, and acknowledging that self-regulation isn't something we can all do all the time. We all need co-regulation, we need connection, we are wired to need support of other people, and that's so important. And the other thing that you talked about, that internalized messaging that young boys receive from such a young age, it's something that we talk a lot about at Bridge the Gap. I talk a lot about vulnerability and Brene Brown, and that there's a story that she talks about in one of her books that really stays with me. Brene Brown talks about the fact that when she did her first lot of research on vulnerability, she did it with females, and she went for a book signing, and there was obviously queues and queues to get Brene to sign these books. And at the end of the book signing, a man came from the back of the room to the front to her desk, and he said, "Have you done any research on vulnerability in men?" And she said, "Well, no, this research was on females." And he said, "Right." He said, "Because you see those two women at the back of the room, that's my daughter and my wife. They would rather see me die on top of my white horse than watch me fall from it." And that really stuck with me when I read that, as a mother of a boy, as a wife, as a daughter, my dad's still around, as a sister to a brother. Like, that's an important thing to connect with ourselves as women in order to truly break the stigma around mental health for men. And it starts from a young age to teach boys that vulnerability does not make you any less of a masculine male if that's how you identify. This is a strength. This is beautiful. This is opens the gateway to true connections and relationships with other people. So I think as a society, we have to come together, male and female, to tackle those internalized messages that young boys have received, and then obviously as men. And Enlighten the Shadows really does, I suppose, target, it is for men, isn't it? It's something out there that's like, we've got you. So what made you take that? I suppose you obviously came to some training with me, and were you a teacher, a TA? What
I was a behaviour ambassador at a school in Nottingham, and a brilliant school, by the way, and had a lot more balanced male female ratio of staff members. So we had a good solid male staff team as well as, and fantastic. They basically gave me the kids that could not regulate at all in class, the kickoffs, the ones that were throwing chairs, flipping tables, absconding, just seen as unmanageable, particularly if you've got a teacher alone or a TA as well as. So I was put in with those young people, and all of them were boys. I had to be careful. I just had to think, yeah, all of them were boys, and absolutely fantastic job. I fell in love with it, and the reason I ended up there was because I was in the children's residential care homes for a good 5 years, and I was utterly flabbergasted, shocked, and confused of how can these teenage boys, particularly because I worked in all boys' homes, become so emotionally unregulated, and their behaviours be so challenging, and yet they're not even an adult yet. I was just fascinated. So this job was perfect because I wanted to get back to the root cause, and I got completely exposed to it. And a lot of my approaches are complete empathy, gentleness, validation, regulate first before you can reason, but always having boundaries, always. And I had the most phenomenal time and had some amazing staff team members around me. And I'll never forget we'll get to Enlighten in a sec, but I'll never forget this young boy, father in prison. He'd get rid of a staff member within 2-3 weeks because he's just too tough to handle. And I was actually really looking forward to it, because sometimes I get put with him the odd occasion, and it was really empathetic and gentle, and slowly trying to build that trust with him, which for males, trust is everything. And when it came to the turn of the new year, I was informed that I would be his assigned staff for the whole year. And when I actually visited him the last week of school for the next year, I looked him dead in the eye. I said, "Listen, this is going to go two ways." I said, "Either you're going to break me, or I am going to break you." I said, you are an amazing young boy. I've seen you. You're talented. You're clever. But these things where you break a staff member, I said, it's the path of destruction. I said, are you going to end up like your father, or are you going to go to this path of life and freedom and amazing things that will unfurl on it? I said, you choose. I'm excited. I think it's going to be the path of life. I think it's to be the second. And he just looked at me like this. And he was shocked, because I don't think he ever had someone speak with such frank words as a male figure that could speak life into him at the same time. And this young boy was kicking off regular. And I mean, like, just unmanageable, unsafe. And I managed to get him within 3.5 months, accessing self-regulation techniques, full-time in class, engaging in all the work. And he was engaging in no work. It was like 5 minutes and he's gone. And anytime he would feel like, because I taught him through nurture groups of 5 with girls in as well, of, you know, survival mode, your brain stem kicking in, the signs that happens, what you feel, and help them understand what's going on with their body and how they feel. And, you know, when that happens, what can they do? What can they access to snap themselves or distract themselves away from it? And then when they're ready, come back into the class. I had him literally saying, oh, Mr. Green, I'm going survival mode. Can I just have 10 minutes out with my fidget? And then, because we've got these eggshell chairs where you pull the shut overhead from IKEA.
Oh, nice.
And he'd go in there and spin himself around, and unbelievable. And he finished the year regulated, and it was the most bizarre thing, because I saw him a year or 2 after, and he was still accessing his learning full time. So I don't say that to brag. I say it that if we provide the right ingredients of masculinity and femininity in a great team environment, and you provide the right tools, and you have a person-centered approach, not institutionalized, where it's like, right, it's my way or the highway, one size fits all. It's like, no, there's that give. There can be magic, and it can change the course of a kid's life forever. It really can. So the reason why Enlighten came about was with this job. I gave it up to get involved bizarrely with politics, and I was like, I was a campaign manager in a general election.
I thought you were going to tell me you were running to be, you know, the next Rishi Sunak.
Well,
let's not go there. But, you know, maybe you should, Rory.
Yeah. So I went for that, and never regretted it. I knew it was right for me. But we then went into the lockdown, and I called the darkest time of my life. I reflect and look back and just think, wow, like, I survived this. My wife set up her own speech therapy company because she supports children with learning difficulties, like the sort of children that the average adult will look at and go, they can't even tell you they need the toilet. So as we hit the lockdown, she was one of the excluded financially, because you need to have a business running for 12 months or more to get that financial provision. I was then waiting for this new job to start, my current job that I've been in 3 years now. And my wife and I have been on a fertility journey for, oh gosh, it's been 5-6 years now of wanting children. And at the time when we went into that first lockdown in 2020, it'd been a good 2.5-3 years of wanting children. And we've been individually told that we can't have children. Now, as a bloke, when my dad left when I was 7-8 years old, all I ever wanted to do is be a father, and be a good one at that. And Charisse had miraculously conceived from the December 2019. And when we were having all these financial issues, as I referred to, like waiting and no money, we lost the baby tragically. It was just a terrible miscarriage. And another thing we found was 1 in 4 women have miscarriages, and no one really talks about it. So it's way more common than you think. And I was literally soul destroyed by that encounter. I watched it all. We went right through A&E. We didn't wait a minute. And I'll just never forget pictorially, because I just made myself support my wife. And yeah, seeing what I saw, seeing the baby, the remains, it was just terrible. And I can talk about that comfortably because although it is painful to me, the more I talked about it, sometimes I cry, and then sometimes I don't, and that's fine either way. It doesn't. It's by the by. It's good for men to talk about such issues because as a man, you feel out of control. Because once, per se, you've done the deed, it's pretty much there in the woman's body for 9 months to nurture. But when we lost that, I just felt utterly at loss and out of control and trying to support my wife. And then another unthinkable thing happened 3 days later. My dad calls me up crying. My dad's now in his 70s, proper old school generation. We're talking, you know, never shown weakness, never saw him cry, never saw him get upset in that sense. And he's saying it's Liz. And Alicia's my stepsister. I said, what do you mean? What's wrong, Dad? What with Liz? And it's like, she's gone. And I was like, what do you mean she's gone? It's like, Liz, she's gone. And he was like, the police are here, I need to go. So put the phone down, and I got hold of him a few hours later, and lo and behold, my stepsister Alicia, she's a 30-year-old NHS doctor in Greater Manchester. She took her own life. And my dad found her because she went AWOL for a day or so. And yeah, I just, again, another moment where I'll never forget for the rest of my life, and it changed my life as well. And so in a 3-day window, we got 2 major events. And then what did I do? I did the classic bloke thing. Step up, man up, don't talk about it, help other people. And that's the right thing to do. So I'm trying to look after my dad, trying to look after my wife. And all I did was bury and push and repress all of those feelings for the sake of others. And it's back to what we said, ladies, at the start, where there's that balance of acknowledging and going there and feeling those traumas and putting the work in. And then also that the resilience, because I'll never prescribe this, but for me, I can't stay here. I can't let this control and dictate my life forever. So we were put in this lockdown, couldn't go anywhere, couldn't do anything. And I sat a bit like what I said to a little boy, crossroads. It was life and it was death, literally. Weeks went into a good couple of months. And by that point, I felt so dark that my heart was broken, but my head felt grey, and it was like this numb feeling over my head, but my heart was just utterly severed. And as a man, you want control over these situations, and I had no control, and I couldn't go out and work, which a lot of men find their purpose and identity in. And I just wanted to die. Like, I was like, I'm done. I can't take this anymore. And that was really hard for me, because most people who know me well know I'm full of life. I'm full of energy. I'm very sociable. I encourage others. And I thought, if I'm the only one who feels like this, there has to be more. And that's where I just sat and Enlighten the Shadows, like you said, you had this moment happen to you, and I'm so grateful for this moment. It changed my life forever. And I thought, I'm going to set up a YouTube channel, look. And I didn't really know what I was doing. I did this little course because obviously we had a lot of time on our hands. And just the name Enlighten the Shadows, I was like, yeah, men hide in the shadows. We cover up in the dark. We wear masks, we pretend. So we need to shine light on this. And I'm ready to talk about hard issues that people aren't willing to talk about. So I had this really crappy light that my missus brought into our marriage that I'd never liked. Thank God it's gone now. I had this old wine rack from my mum's house that somehow got passed down to me, and this old laptop. And I just pressed record. And that was what it's all about. In life, you just got to take risks. You might not have all the answers. You might not sound, you know what you're on about half the time. You might not be that good at it. But I did it with a good friend of mine who had aggressive blood cancer in 2015 and completely healed. And I just wanted to encourage people. I just wanted to inspire people. And yet the one who needed it most was me.
Yeah.
And yeah, it saved my life. That was like my therapy, which was helping other people, which helped myself. And 3 years later, we grew into a private chat group on Facebook where there's 700 men on there talking about domestic abuse, the sexual anxiety, suicidal thoughts, addiction to drugs, gambling, alcohol, all sorts of issues. And where it wasn't just me at the start, just constantly pouring out. Now there's men helping one another. We've got like a brotherhood on there. We've got nearly 4,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel. We've got 70,000+ views. We're becoming a registered charity literally imminently. We've got trustees lined up. We've got an open chat group in Ashfield where the first 126 men come, and then we're talking like miners' sons, you know, about as masculine and tough as old boots as you get. And we had half the room in tears this past month at our first meeting. And I was just telling my story like I am now on the camera. And we've saved, as a ballpark figure, we don't know definitively, but it's anywhere from 100 to 200 men we've saved, genuinely, who are in utter crisis, who have been failed sadly by the NHS because they're overworked, underpaid, underfunded, stretched. And we're literally getting these men who are just in crisis, or men who have never been in crisis, and as a result, the last 3 years, they don't know what on earth to do, and they don't know how to say it. So yeah, that's Enlighten the Shadows. That's what we do, and we support men online through the chat group, through social media, but a lot of traffic's on direct messaging, a lot, because men, even though we've got that structure, they still, because of years worth of pressure, as you say, yeah. Or if they need to meet up, one of us boys will go out and we'll go for a walk, we'll have a coffee or even a beer. We're not like most groups. Our first group I mentioned was in a pub. Now we're aware of the risks of being a stumbling block to addiction, and we're on that, and we were watching people closely, but not judgmentally. But you know, if you want a circle with waters and, you know, ultra clinical and white lab coats environments, there's plenty of that out there. But this is why we're different. We say how it is. We want men to feel comfortable. And if they have a beer, it might help them to feel calm and open up. So yeah, we're quite different, and you know, we always validate what people are saying. We don't make a big deal out of it. That's what we do, and we won't stop, because 12 men a day die of this. And like you say, you ladies and all your team are doing a phenomenal job. But we've got, we've got decades, generation or two of men now. And the biggest killer of men under 45 is not cancer, it's not cardiovascular disease, it's not COVID, it's suicide. And it's 100% preventable. So yeah, I'm getting passionate now. So there we are.
It's so incredible, Rory, just listening to your very emotive story and trying not to kind of show that myself, but equally that's everything, isn't it? Why not share that? Why not cry together? Why not get emotional? Because it does matter. It matters to all of us here.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's the thing, is we're so programmed to believe that tears are weakness, that, you know, showing emotion means that you can't handle the tough stuff. And I think you're incredible. I think what you're doing is incredible. I think it's so needed, and you're the walking example of using pain for purpose and talking about topics that people don't want to talk about, because people don't want to talk about the facts of the situation that we're in, this crisis. We talk about mental health crisis. Nobody talks about what that actually means for, in our minds, with children. And you know, really difficult things that we hear every day, but that's the reality of the crisis we're in. We're talking about something that has to change.
Yeah.
And I don't think you do that without connecting with people and using your story. And I think you're amazing. And I think I know how hard it is sometimes to sort of peel away those layers, if you like, and be so vulnerable online. And I remember the first time on Instagram years ago, I hid behind this rainbow logo for quite a while.
Yeah.
And then I felt like, hang on, do I really want to make a change in the world? Because if so, I have to bring myself to the forefront. And that did require me to let go of some of those limiting beliefs that I had, which was that I was a drama queen, that I was an attention seeker, that I had something to feel ashamed of in some way. And it took me a long time to realize I had nothing to be ashamed of, and I could be myself. I'm not, it's not anybody, nobody's liked by everybody, but that's okay. And I think that piece that came from within me then meant that I'm going to step out of my shadow to bring it back to Enlighten the Shadows and say, do you know what, this is me, this is the story, the parts of my story that I feel safe to share online. I want people to know that it gets better, and you are a walking example of that, that this hope that we all feel like we lose in those moments, that we feel like there is no other option, like you say, it's life or death. Yep. The one thing that makes us choose life is hope.
That's right.
And you're bringing hope to those men.
Well, yeah. You're literally lightening the shadows, aren't you? And what you're doing it with is validation in bucket loads, empathy in bucket loads, and at the heart of it, connection and relationship, which is where our parallels completely lie. And that stuff works, you know, going back to what I was saying and working within the NHS for years. And like you were just saying then, reflecting on that is not the staff within those systems, it's the pressure, it's the system, it's the constantness, isn't it? But what you're lacking with that pressure and the constantness around the system is relationship and time to build that. And actually also recognizing in yourself, how do I have space to offload this to somebody? If that's been an issue for me in a situation with a young person, for instance, how do I then move through those difficult emotions that have come up as a part of that nursing that I've done? Or all of those staff, they care, you would like to think, but the system is just broken, it feels like, because there's no time for that relationship at the heart of it anymore.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people, particularly the NHS, we like to throw the money card, and you know, it's not about where you politically align. If we've got these cultural infrastructures in place, meaning the ways of the everyday work, what is your routine? What if something really bad happens? Paramedics, A&E or departments, usually speaking, they don't really get a moment to process. And I do know a lot of nurses as well. They just expected, like literally a soldier, a weapon, ultimately, not a human being, a weapon. And I firmly believe if we could have the right culture where things aren't so clinical and robotic, people across the board, whether it's a patient or someone who needs that care or love, or someone who's providing that care provision, wherever, you know, it doesn't have to be an NHS, it's you know, us guys, if we put people at the first of it in any infrastructure, in the work that I do, your biggest asset is your staff. Your biggest asset when it comes to financial prerogatives is your staff. And yet people do these little tick box exercises of, oh yeah, we're going to do this for mental health, and it's like, it's just a tick box. We need to put people first, and when we start doing that, we'll see like great organizations like yourselves, like ours, like you know, thank you for your kind words earlier, but I would not be able to do hardly any of this if it wasn't for my lovely wife and some very close friends and the boys that are on the team. Like we are open about having women in the future on the team, 100%. I think that's necessary. But there's some great men, you know, there's Mark Bellamy, there's Steve Rose, there's Ian Manning, there's Ash Cox, there's Harvey Devonport. You know, there's all these lads, and then lads who have helped of old, Rich Smith, Paolo Piliero, Blake Hancock, Jack Anderson, lads who have got us to where we are today, who have given freely of their time, because no one makes a penny out of what we do. It's all in our free time. We all got full-time jobs. We do this because we love people. And once we get to these basic, you know, fundamental pillars of society, which are love, hope, care, sounds so simple and quite fluffy, but it doesn't have to look fluffy all the time. Like I said earlier, sometimes with men we support, we actually have to put boundaries in place for their benefit and for ours. But I just think there are some wonderful, wonderful people in this world, wonderful groups, organizations that get no airtime. Like there's groups in our local area, Bottled Up Blokes. Blokes is another one. You know, there's groups that are trying to pick up pieces from where sadly the fragmentations of the NHS brokenness kind of goes outward, and you know, they get no credit. I'm not saying I want it or we want it, but if more people are aware of our group and other groups, it doesn't just have to be ours, because we're not the answer, but collectively we are the answer. And there's so many people now going, this thing that we're doing, this machine in this country, just sadly it's not working, and either they're going to have to adapt. This sounds quite firm, but it's the truth. They're going to have to adapt to the ways that they're doing care, life, or it's going to go only one way, sadly. And you got all these great groups that I guess have had these moments, these epiphanies of how they wish people or life to treat them, and we're on with it, we're doing it, we're cracking on, and it's so worth it. The privilege.
And I definitely think that is ran and driven by the voluntary sector. Like you were just saying, it needs to be really that people are driving this from their own passion, from their own experiences, from lived experience, because how can you even then begin to show up and understand that for somebody else without that? That's how,
but that's how you identify the gaps as well. It's by listening to people's experiences, because you know, all of our experiences have identified gaps, which is why we're doing what we're doing now, because there wasn't that there.
And it's not blaming the systems. None of what I've said or what we're talking about is, you know, pointing the finger and go, it's saying, well, hold on a minute. We have to draw the line in the sand at some point. We have to say, we can't keep going like this. So therefore, the government, you know, God bless this country and democracy and all the things that exist, but we can't have this mentality of putting your hands out and saying, the government are my best friend, the government are my best friend, they'll help me. It's like, no, if you see a gap, which I guess is the word that we're kind of feeling right now, the gap is there as an opportunity to be filled by us together, the population. And if we've got a passion and some experience behind us, may not have the best skill set, but that can be developed, go for it. I you know, we have women going, we have honestly amazing women who support our group, but the couple of women who've gone, oh, what about women? I say, absolutely, what about women? I say women attempt suicide just as much as men. They really do, and that's a bit of a taboo in itself. And I've lost two really close people in the last 2 years to suicide who are both women. But I can't speak into a woman's life like a woman can. I can't relate as a woman can. So I said, great idea. Why don't you run with it?
Yeah, absolutely. There's something you said earlier, Rory, that really stuck with me. I suppose something that I say a lot, and that is that there are a lot of good people in there, and like, you love people. I love people. And I say this all the time, but and it sounds fluffy, but I genuinely love people. I believe in people. And I think when I'm talking about when we're training a new recruit, a volunteer, a cohort of volunteers, or whatever that is, or whether I'm talking to children, this is the message that is, I love you, I care about you, and I believe in you. And you know what? I care about you and love you and believe in you if I've never even met you, because I just think together as a society, we are awesome and we work best together with that relationship, with that connection. And you have to lead with love. You have to. And what has come out from all of this is that relationships, which is what we talk about all the time, whether it's in your role at school, Rory, or whether it's our role at Bridge the Gap, or you as a husband, or you as a son, you know, whatever it is, it's relationship that's the heart of that. But that self-awareness, to bring it back to the beginning, is that relationship with ourselves is just as important.
Right, that's the money. Because some people, we expect them to love people, right? But how can they love other people when they don't even know how to love themselves, because of the past experiences have been so brutal? And that's the sweet spot, I think, where we both you know, Enlighten and Bridge the Gap come in. It's, we get right down on their level, and that's what you said, Nikki, about the empathy. It's huge, because you'll see a behavior, so it might not present pretty, it might present pretty darn challenging, where most people, they ain't want the time for that, they ain't got the time for that, they don't want to give the time for that. But it's not the what, it's the why. Why is that happening? Why is that? Where has that come from? And then that's where the love comes in. And then actually you realize they just resent their life. They haven't been loved properly. You know, if one person just says to them, I love you, when was the last time they heard that? Or showing up, you know, even the days where we might not feel it, it's us showing up regularly. That's what they need.
Sense of belonging, isn't it? If you've got that sense of belonging and hope and connection with someone, that's everything. That's a cure right there.
It's healing in nature, isn't it? And that is by us, around us all. And it's so amazing. And I think that everything we've talked about this shows the passion, that pain that our experiences, that it can be for good. And for anyone who's listening to this, anybody, please know, if you're in a world of pain, whether you feel like it's just too much, I have been there on more than one occasion and felt like I just can't do it anymore. And I stayed and I did, and I'm glad, and I'm more than glad, because life is beautiful and it's not pretty. Life is never pretty, apart from some very nice little moments here and there, but it's rich, it's fulfilling. And I just think riding those waves, and just know that if it's what I say to the children all the time, but if you've let go of your hope balloon because you're just too tired, like, pass it on to someone else, let them hold it for you. It doesn't have to go up into the sky and be lost forever. That hope, your hope, someone else will hold on to it for you until you're ready to take it back. So if anyone is listening to this, we'll put the links to absolutely all the support that we have there, not just for ourselves, but other great organisations as well, because there will be the right thing for you. Just have to keep that hope balloon safe, whether that's with you or someone else, and you will get there.
Can I just say on that note quickly?
Yeah.
That it is absolutely all right to feel that way, whether you're a man or woman, whether you've got your own job and you're balancing childcare and things going on at the school, or you know, you're trying to find your purpose in life and you just feel lost and you just can't do it. I felt like that quite a few times in the last 3 years, and it's because quite hard on myself, and I need to be kinder to myself. And I'm still growing. Leadership can be lonely, but it doesn't have to be. And so I've had to implement things in my life where I can't be a hypocrite and go, oh, look after your mental health, be kind to yourself. And then it's like this past week, I went on holiday and I didn't do a thing with Enlighten, because I've built something where I've got a good set of team lads around me who I trust. And then I did find it hard. I was pacing up and down the pool, but I'm even on the journey of just trying to be kind to myself and caring about myself, not trying to do so much for other people all the time. Go to a concert, or go to a sports match that you like. Whatever it is, just do it, and don't feel guilty for it, and don't feel bad that you just want to give up. Because it's in those moments your body and your mind and your surroundings are telling you something maybe that needs that little bit tweak or change, and then you learn about yourself, and then you can keep going again, moving forward. So I just wanted to, especially with men as well, let them know that it's okay to feel that way, and if you need a chat, we're always here to listen.
And for women listening there, check in on your men. Seriously, check in on them. Make sure that you are responding to their emotions in a way that lets them know that you're happy for them to feel that way, and you will be there just like they would be for you. But I think that's so important, that permission giving. You are still the same person if you've got feelings, and that's hugely important. So I think we've got huge responsibility for that as well. Rory, the work you're doing is just phenomenal. I think we're just blown away by this chat. It's been awesome.
Yeah, it's been great.
I think all of the things that I wanted to make sure we covered, we have definitely covered, but I always tend to end on one question that I'll ask it. But Rory, if you need a moment to think, or it feels like too emotional to get where or whatever, because everyone has different reactions. But the question I would like to ask to end is, what one thing do you wish that if you could go back and talk to your younger self, what message would you want your young Rory to hear from you now?
It's an absolutely phenomenal question, because I will answer the question. I was a trapped little boy in a 27-year-old's body, and I'm 34 now, but I started going through this self-awareness when reading a book, and it was a basketball book, a biography of all things, and it just basically lit me up of, I'm a little boy in a man's body. And it was this, I was trapped through things I won't go into, but you will be believed, and you will find a way out. You will be believed, and you will find a way out. I think being believed and then finding a way out is all that I needed, is to know that, you've been through it and that happened, but you will find a way out no matter what. I think it's the acknowledgement again, and then there's the affirmation, and then there's the hope, I think, in those words. So that would be for me.
I think there's so many people will be so glad to hear that, and also can relate to that, and what a message to send. Nikki, anything that you want to end on?
I don't think so. Just so grateful for your organisation and that it exists, Rory. I've known very many men personally and professionally across my years that have really, really struggled with, like you were saying, that you're not defective in any way. If you're not happy and you're not living life and full of joy, it's normal to feel difficult emotion. Life's full of it. So just thank you. So grateful that Enlighten the Shadows is available.